I was doing the autoplay.
Yeah, it's starting now. I see it now.
Okay.
Cool.
There we
Yes.
go.
There we go.
All right, false start there on our end. Welcome back to the Dev Twitch stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I am a lead software engineer at Forum. Forum is the software that powers dev.
And I'm Christina Gorton. I am the developer advocate at Forum. And today we have several guests. Yay! They're going to intro themselves. So we're going to start with Carmen.
Hi, friends. I'm Carmen. I'm a junior software developer for a nonprofit organ and tissue procurement organization. Danielle?
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I am a newly minted junior software engineer 3 days into a job at an awesome ed tech company called Open Up Resources. Yeah. I think Randall's next.
Yeah, and I am Randel. I am a freshly pressed junior dev looking for work. So if you're out there and you need a bearded dev on your team, if you're short one bearded dev, I can fill in for you.
I'm Jonan, and I work at New Relic on the developer relations team, and I'm looking to hire anyone like Randall, but without the beard. Just like an exact profile of Randall, but no beard. Actually, we're not. We've just finished hiring someone. I'm excited.
Yay, new
That's
people.
awesome. Cool. Well, I just want to say thanks for all of you to come on the stream. I know this is not the time that all of you stream normally. The Code School stream, which we'll drop the link to, is on Wednesdays at, I can't remember what time it is because I'm in Eastern and you guys, all of you are Pacific time, I believe.
6 p.m. approximately.
Okay.
Between 6 and 8 p.m.
Ideally.
on Wednesday night. Yeah,
Okay.
but probably not this week. Probably not this week.
Yeah, because you're on offsite right now, and yeah, just busy. Cool. Yeah, so let's talk Code School before we get into some questions and stuff. So I'm curious what Code School is, how it came about. You know, we need this like really good origin story, and hopefully it involves sideburns and no beard.
No beard, yeah. Well, it was, I think, sideburns motivated. So Code School Q&A came into existence because I attended a code school myself about 10 years ago. And after getting out of code school and making my way into the industry, I have ever since had a special affinity for people who come through that particular non-traditional background. So I do coffee talks with people. I speak at code schools a lot. And I give a talk about salary negotiation. After one such talk, one Carmen Kolodziej reached out to me via email and said, hey, can we do a coffee chat? Like the thing that everyone does, right? We're all advised to go and make introductions and try and make friends in the industry. And I do so many of them that I was trying to batch them up. And I said to Carmen, hey, how do you feel about doing this on a stream? The email in particular motivated me to reach out and suggest a stream because Carmen had written in the email, while 2020 has seemed like a dumpster fire at times, this dumpster fire has kept us warm. And I was convinced that this is a person who needed to be on the internet regularly. Thus, Code School Q&A came into existence.
That's awesome. And so how long has the Code School stream been around? Because I know it's your own Twitch stream, so you do other things too there, I'm sure, but yeah.
Less than I would like, but well, I mean, Code School Q&A has been around for maybe 5 months or so.
Okay.
Does that sound about right? And then, I would love to do other things on my stream, but I think I've streamed maybe 5 times outside of Code School. As a manager, I get to mostly do the less fun stuff of going to meetings instead of streaming.
Cool.
Yeah. I think I was on a stream with you, wasn't I, Jonan? For Ruby something. Open source.
Yeah, for the launch of our team. Yeah, it was for the Ruby Galaxy episode, right?
That's it.
Oh, yeah. No, that's awesome. So, so Carmen, you started your job, it was a few months ago now, was it? Or
Yeah, I started in May.
Okay.
Almost 90 days. Yeah. Is it 90 days? It's 90 days, roughly. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I remember I talked to you briefly about this, but you kind of explained how you came into that job because you started off as an intern there, I believe. I don't know if you want to, you cool with the kind of saying how you got to the job you're at now through the internship? Because I thought it was a great story.
Yeah,
Great story.
yeah. So I was an intern for the company I worked for, and I was my project was to build this app for a client. And it was like week 2 or something, and I sat in one of their big quarter meetings for the IT department, and I'm reading in their PowerPoint all of their quarterly goals. And in quarter 3, they had a goal to hire a junior developer. And right after the meeting, I send an email to the manager and I'm like, hey, I can help you meet your goals sooner. Hire me now. And
Carmen's a total badass.
yeah, I mean, luckily I built the app. It all works. It's fantastic. It's live. It's all working. And yeah, I was like, I'll help maintain it. I know that's my baby. I can do this. So it all worked out and happily ever after, kind of.
Yeah, no,
Nice.
I think that's awesome because you kind of went out of your way to make yourself a job or get the job. You know what I mean? Like you could have done the internship and then like that's it, it's a wrap. But you were just like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna talk to them, and clearly it worked out. So that's why I really like this story. You were motivated to say like, you know what, I can do this, and like I think I could do this job. And they're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. You've already been interning here. They know you. So I just think when I hear stories like this, I think they're great because it's just a reminder to folks to like, it never hurts to ask or just talk to people because you never know what's going to happen. So it's one of my
This
favorite
whole
stories I've
thing
heard so
sprung
far.
into existence. Like we're here talking to you on the Practical Dev today because Carmen sent an email trying to make friends
Yeah.
on the internet. This is the kind of hustle that gets you jobs. That
Yeah,
is
that's
exactly
what
what it
I was
takes
going to
in
bring
this
back to
arena.
that point too. I think the nice thing about this of hearing that story and hearing this story originally of like code school is that I think a lot of times we're scared to reach out to people or sometimes people in tech are like when you're a newer dev you get scared to like reach out, but a lot of times people want to just hang out and talk too. Like a lot of developers just want to hang out and stuff too, or those opportunities, like you said, like sometimes when you're in a company, they're not thinking, oh, well, okay, we got to go through all this and hire a new person. You're like, I'm here, I can do it. And I think that was so awesome. So,
And I don't know that we actually covered this about what the Code School Q&A stream actually does. So as a general rule, we hang out on Wednesday evenings, and we have an adult beverage if we so choose, and we
Sometimes
just
more.
chat. I always choose. That is the choice I make every time.
you need to come on this stream. I want to go on your stream.
You're welcome. You can come. So we are
come.
trying to build a community and help people answer questions. The three of us don't have a lot of experience yet in the industry, but we do have experience trying to break into the industry and going to code school. That's very fresh in our minds. So those are things that we're very happy to answer questions about. Jonan has a ton of industry experience about hiring people and everything else related to code. So altogether, we have this very well-rounded group that we just want to help people answer questions and make friends. So come say hello anytime. Everyone's welcome.
I have to say, like, I feel like you all sell yourself short sometimes. When you've just come out of school, it's hard to remember this, but you are in the best position to teach people. The pain is fresh, right?
Yep.
I sometimes forget how hard it was to struggle to understand some concept in JavaScript. Now, because I've been doing this for a long enough time, I start to make assumptions about what people understand and don't understand. And so
I think that's been an interesting process too, like being able to like pause you and be like, wait, like I might know what you're talking about, but I remember like me 6 months ago, I definitely did not know what you were talking about. Can you like break down this vocabulary word and like dig into that for a second?
Yeah, I will drop words like idempotency casually, you know?
At dinner parties, you know.
No big deal. Yeah,
as you do.
I think that's very important. It's something that I think we see a lot on, say, like the dev blog, is that a lot of times the blog posts that get a lot of traction are the ones that where someone's just learned something and they teach someone else because they know those pain points and they're not going to forget to, tell someone, like, break down things for them so that they can understand too. And I agree with Jonan. You guys are selling yourself short if you're saying, well, we don't have that much experience. You have a good experience right now for what, junior devs need, and even developers who are more experienced who often forget, like, oh yeah, that's how you do it.
This is what I love so much about dev is all the content is so approachable, right? The people are writing publicly about their experience learning, and we need to do far more of that as developers, because you can look around at GitHub repos all day and see this polished, clean code and think everything I write is trash compared to that. But you don't realize that that's iteration number 100. That person has revised and edited and finally published this gem of a product. And you, by building in public, you humanize the whole process of making software, which is fundamentally important to effective teaching and learning, I think.
Yep. Don't look at my GitHub, y'all. It's bad.
Oh, I have a huge number of
Nothing
terrible
polished.
repos. Yep.
Show us the graveyard, Christina. Yeah, and
Look
the
at
other
my
thing too
code
about-
pin, not my GitHub.
yeah, but on a serious note, Christina is an animation expert, CSS, web animation, so definitely check out her stuff. Shamelessly drop your code pen in the chat, Christina.
Yes,
not
drop
my
that
GitHub.
code pen.
The other thing too that we were saying about, like, folks are fresh in the industry, or like the thing you hear from a lot of people that write is they're like, I don't know if I should write this. There's already like 100 blog posts out there about technology X or framework X, and that's true. But there's a lot of people on the planet, and not everybody learns things the same way. So, like, the way you write it might resonate with people differently, and and it's never a bad thing. And writing things down also, just like if you think about it from a selfish perspective for a second, is it helps you solidify what you've learned, because as you're writing it down, you're like, okay, yeah, this, okay, yeah. And then I find personally that stuff clicks for me once I've written it down, or like just thinking it through. So there's like a lot of great reasons to do these things. And so all the newbies out
It's
there,
easy to remind yourself when you go through Google and search for CSS animation, you're going to look at 10 resources that are not for you before you find the one that makes it easy for you to understand the concept. You could beat
Just
that.
find my own
someone else.
content.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's happened to me so many times too. I'm like, how do I do that thing again? And it's like, oh yeah, I wrote about it. So
Yeah,
Mia from chat makes an excellent point that words like easy or simple or obvious are to be avoided in general in learning spaces. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are super subjective terms.
Yeah, when you
Yes,
are
that
sort
are
of
not helpful,
piggyback
especially for like brand new baby beginners.
to piggyback off what Nick said, when you are teaching somebody else, even if they already know it, like if you just need to explain it back to whoever's teaching you, that is a very, very active process. You can be accidentally very passive while learning. If you are being lectured at or watching a video even, a lot of those words are going in one ear and out the other, or your mind starts to drift. But if you are teaching somebody else or trying to teach somebody else, that is a very, very active thing that you're doing. Your whole brain's got to be firing to make that happen. So absolutely, it will help you learn along with somebody else. Win-win.
Yeah, even if you have a beer.
Even if you have a beer or two.
Yeah. It would be win-win-win without the beard. If you had sideburns, for example.
I kind of do. They're hidden slightly.
Yeah.
Attached to some chin fuzz.
Yeah.
Hey, chat, throw us some questions.
Yeah, anyone got
we got
questions?
a bunch of folks in there. We've got hashtag hire Randel trending in the chat right now. I'm gonna start that on Twitter. I'm gonna retweet with it.
I can support this. I'm Randel and I support this message.
Yeah, exactly. I am once again asking you to hire Randel.
Well, in this same vein of like what we're talking about, since we have this kind of varied right now, we have, two people who have kind of just come into the job as junior developers. We have someone looking for a job, and we have someone who's hired people and knows a lot about I think we can touch on some of that too while we wait to see if there's any questions. Like I want to talk a little bit more because especially our community, the dev community and code newbies, a lot of people are beginning and they're looking for a job or they've recently got into a job. And a lot of these kind of topics definitely resonate with them. So Danielle, do you want to talk about, kind of getting into your job at all?
Yeah, totally. So I think my story is an excellent testimony to making human connections with people. I started, instead of doing the slog of, digging into the bowels of LinkedIn and finding all of the jobs that I should be applying to that I'm never going to hear back from, because that's just not how it works most of the time. I started leaning heavily into the Portland local women in tech community. And like literally spent a good, 30 minutes to an hour every single day, making sure that I read through all of the different threads happening in that Slack channel, and especially leaned into a few similar job board type spaces within Slack in like women in tech or like social initiative, positive like groups that are working to do social change in the world, because that's really where I wanted to land for this first job.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I saw this job post get shared by a woman that is now my coworker, and her and I feel like we already have started a really great foundation to a friendship. Just chatting in between now and when I first reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I just saw this job that you shared. It looks really awesome. I think that I'm going to send an application in, but do you have any recommendations for how I can stand out as a candidate? And, I'd love to chat with you about your experience with the company if you have, any thoughts and feelings about that. And she's like, OMG, yes, I have much thoughts and feelings. It's like the best company I've ever worked for. And like they do what they say they're going to do 99% of the time, and like really work hard to do the work. And I was like, yes, sign me up now, please. And she was amazing. And like every step along the way that I had questions, because I went through 5 interview rounds with this company, she was always happy to answer my questions and pass along my info to the hiring managers and stuff too. And, despite it being like a long interview process, the whole way it was very thoughtful. And very intentional in how they were like asking questions and, making sure I was human and making sure that I wanted to be doing the work that they're doing too. And yeah, I just am into day 3 of my junior software engineer position. Hooray, jobs.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. I submitted my first couple of commits and got my first pull request in yesterday.
Nice.
I was not driving, mind you, but that day will come. And yeah, it was a really, really rad, awesome experience. And I'm super excited to be working with all of these people and also like working more broadly to make education in America more equitable at this company. So pretty great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like you missed out on a big part of how you got your job, in the sense that like, what tech stack are you working with in comparison to what we learned at school? Like that's something
true.
People should also know, like to be human, why it's important to be a good human.
Yeah, I think so. I did a C#.NET track with Epicodus. I was really interested in Ruby, but it wasn't being offered at the time that I wanted to start the program. So I was like, let's just get this done. Need to get in school so I'm not losing my mind doing nothing on unemployment at home. Let's go. But the rest of the tech stack that they listed in the job post aligned with what I had been working on, but their main bag is Ruby. So I was like, can I still hack it? I'm sure I can. And they like very much knew that I did not have Ruby experience. And I did start doing a little bit of basic foundational work with Ruby in the last few weeks, just to have any kind of, markers for what I need to be working on moving forward. But and it sounds like the lady that I connected with, she also did not have Ruby experience when they hired her as a junior dev about 1.5 years ago. So it's definitely like a very learning positive space from what I've experienced so far, which is really, really amazing. Kind of like the ideal for a junior developer. Like, oh, you have lots of
Speaking of.
questions? Please ask them. Lots and lots.
Speaking of questions, we got our first question. Did you all see that?
Yay, question.
I did see it.
Yeah,
I
it
did
flew-
see
it
it.
flew by.
What
So,
can more senior developers do to make junior developers feel more welcome?
yep.
Great question, Andrew.
Yeah.
It is a good question. Who wants to go?
I'll do it. I was just talking to one of my senior developers yesterday that I was pairing with, and I was just expressing my appreciation for how much he works to create a positive learning environment where like everybody has consistently on the team been saying like, yes, please ask lots and lots of questions. And like, they've also been, ones to reach out and like offer, hey, do you want to come and jump on this task with me? And, I feel like I can totally put my extrovert hat on when I need to and like jump into like, hey, can I do this thing with you? But it's really nice to have some reciprocity there. And, also emphasizing that like, don't even just like ask a question one time, but like know that you can ask the same question over and over again until you get it. And that's great. Like we just want to see you working and learning and growing. And I think like consistent communication and all of that too is really helpful on both the side of like me as a junior developer checking in and seniors and other staff members checking in too.
Yeah.
I think I want to talk about the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add one thing, and then I actually did want your perspective because I want people who are more senior to kind of put in also what they think. I totally agree with that. I think it's super helpful with junior developers to feel safe to ask questions. When I had my first junior job, it happened to be remote, and they created a whole Slack channel just for me to be able to ask questions. And they were just like, put all the questions in there. We're going to answer it. And it was the same thing. They let me like jump on, calls with them to work on stuff and pair program. And I really felt like safe there to be able to explore and learn and stuff. And I see that kind of in the tech community. When a junior has a place where they feel safe to ask questions, they thrive. If they don't, that's a lot of times when people have a really rough time in tech. But yeah, Jonan, I want to hear what you had to say.
I wanted to talk about the questions piece because the role of a senior, first of all, describing me as more senior people is increasingly sounding like the old person. So let's just maybe also this other developer who is here and is very
There we
young.
go.
The stream.
and
There's the
strong.
early bird
do that.
supper. We gotta stop it. There's the early bird supper. So.
Okay. So
Nick is senior too, so he's old. Old guy.
we got to get there on time. So the question thing is, it's important for seniors to go out of their way to make that an easy and welcoming experience. From a junior's perspective, it's important to remember that part of the learning involves the pain of not having that answer. So if you are looking to, I would time box myself at 30 minutes, and I advise people to time box themselves at 30 minutes. If you spend more than 30 minutes struggling with an issue, you are likely wasting the company's time, your team's time, more than is necessary, because you may be able to ask me that question and get an answer right away, right? I could only spend 5 seconds giving you a, hey, you should go and search for this on the internet, not in a mean way. Not as a senior, it's not your job to remind people that they need to fight for their own knowledge and educate themselves, right? Be gentle and kind and help them learn. You're teaching people how to fish. You're not just handing them the answer. You're definitely not ever taking the keyboard. If you're a senior developer and you're pair programming with someone, you are the voice and they're the keyboard, right? Using a navigator pattern of pair programming is really, really important, because even if the junior programming with you is nodding along enthusiastically and repeating the sentences you say, they have no idea what's going on a lot of the time, and they're ashamed to admit it. So give them the opportunity and force them to have to type the things. It's a very frustrating experience for a senior developer to be like, no, back 2 spaces, then the semicolon, right? But it's also a good exercise in patience, and it will help you understand the learning process better, which only helps you to be a better mentor.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I think
on the subject of mentorship, real fast, do that.
Yeah.
Make sure that there's a structured mentorship program in place.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Just pairing with folks, or just like, I think Christina mentioned, just creating a safe space where it's super okay to just ask questions. There's no stupid questions. It's like I would rather somebody ask questions now than like 2 months later when it's like probably problematic at that point.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say too is like as you progress in your career, like when you first start off, like I remember I got, like when I was a junior, it's like I got an error, I have no idea what's going on. Now that I'm more senior, it's like, okay, I've got this error, okay, I Google it, because probably 99% of the time that's already happened to somebody. I find the error message, or maybe I debug it. But I think the thing to learn as you progress is do as much due diligence as you can, but it's a different amount of it at each level in your career. As a junior, it might just be like, I got this error message, I Googled it, and I don't know how to debug it. Like, it says this line, there's something crashed, and then maybe that's enough information to speak to a senior. But as you progress, it'll be more like, okay, well, I've checked through all the logs. Okay, yeah, no, the network connections, like you're just digging deeper in. And Scott Hanselman gave a really good closing talk at the CodeLand last year. That's just I'm also sideline plugging CodeLand, I guess. But he was talking about, like, he's older, but the main difference is he still Googles too. He just Googles better than you starting in your career, because like, people joke about it, but it's not a joke. It's like being able to Google well is a superpower. And it's like knowing to look for like the right things. Like one thing that I've seen happen multiple times when folks are searching for something, they'll copy paste the error message in Google, but they don't get hits, or it's like something obscure, and it's because like it might contain like your file path that's related to just your computer or whatever. So like you search for part of the error message then maybe, and then you get more relevant results. That's just like an example. But so it's all about just doing your due diligence, but it does get better as you go on through your career, and that will help you when you go to approach somebody for help. Because if you just say like, it crashed, help me, like that's kind of like, it's not insulting, but it's just like, it's not that helpful. So
Yeah.
that's
I feel like
one
sometimes
knowledge
if I
nugget.
like have a thing that I can describe like what happened, but I just don't have all of the vocabulary in my head yet to have like the 3 keywords that I need to Google the thing that I like need to actually help me debug or find the answer to this thing. Like, my logic might be there, but like, unless I can plug in 2 sentences into Google to explain what's happening and what I need from it, like, that's a moment that I definitely need to go and like just ask somebody more senior and be like, hey, this is the thing that I'm experiencing, but I don't have the keywords to search properly. Like, what would you say I should be looking for? And like, yeah, that's like a 10-second conversation a lot of the time, where like, here's your 3 keywords, go Google now. Like, cool, can do the thing.
That's exactly the time you want to ask the question, is when you're just looking for enough information to actually go search for the thing online. But again, even a short 10-second interruption is going to create a significant disturbance in the force on a team that is focused and working, right? And so you need to balance that against your own research. And as a senior, you need to create time that is designated for those questions. I think one of the things that we do on our team that I'm quite proud of is the mentorship pairing. We call it Mentat internally, where you are paired up with another member of the team, and you are required by Mentat law, and it doesn't always happen, but we try our best to meet in the morning for 15 minutes and meet in the afternoon for 15 minutes, or you spend 15 minutes a day of dedicated time with your mentor and your mentee. In our case, we had separate ones. They're not going to be paired. But the point is that you have isolated time set aside to go through those questions. So you meet with your senior in the morning. I love this phrase too. The code school crew always says this. Well, I was talking to my senior. It's a very strange way to say this thing, but meet with your senior in the morning and talk about what you're going to do that day. And they may have some advice. Oh, if you're trying to do this extension, try this technology, right? And then you take notes all day long when you get stuck on a thing. If you're actually blocked and you're not going to make any more progress on whatever ticket you're working on, make sure you go and ask for help in the moment. But by the end of the day, you should have a long list of terms and things that you don't understand, or things you want to have enough to search for. Just more research. I heard the name of this technology, Tailwind. What even is Tailwind? How do I find that? In that case, just Google Tailwind, please. But you see my point, that you have a long list of things that you can walk through with your senior at the end of the day. And seniors, you have to make time and protect it, because they're not going to come and ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions that I don't want to disappear. We've had 2 more questions, and some of them are up, so I want to make sure we get them. Hold on, I got to find them again.
I've got
I'm
one.
just scrolling up too.
What are new hires currently doing to make their senior job easier?
Yes, there we go. And I think they mean, and if we're wrong, let us know. But how are new hires making it a little bit easier for seniors to help them? I'm assuming, is that
Okay.
what everyone else is getting from that?
That translates to me too. Yeah.
Okay, I did drop a link because we've been kind of talking about this, like the asking the questions and how to ask questions. It's a link I used to give my students when I was a teacher at a boot camp, is how to ask good questions to get answers. And Nick was mentioning this, like when you're first starting out, sometimes you're just like, oh, I have this error. You don't really describe things, and like Jonan said, that can kind of be disruptive. It takes time from other people, and so it's really important to understand how to ask good questions so that you can get answers and not do this like back and forth thing, especially remote work, like on Slack. It can be real easy to be like back and forth, like saying 1 or 2 line things instead of giving all the information that you can, so that you can get help quicker. And I think that really helps seniors. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything else to that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of touch on what Jonan was saying before about a disturbance in the force. One thing I do, and it's not to ignore people, is like when somebody will ping me in Slack about like they're stuck on something, I don't answer immediately, because a lot of times if I wait like 10 minutes, I'll get a response like, oh, never mind, I figured it out, because they either started typing it out or they just thought it through a bit more. And for folks that use Slack at their work, a little trick you can do is, like, if you want to kind of rubber duck or talk yourself through something, just type to the Slack bot like what you're trying to figure out. And not saying it always works, but the TLDR is just wait a little bit before helping somebody, because more often than not, folks figure it out just by giving that little buffer.
It has the added advantage of training your coworkers not to expect Slack to be a synchronous form of communication. So you don't get messages like, hey, Jonan, are you there? Are you on vacation? Hey, in like a 5-minute span, right? Yeah.
Did you put suntan lotion on? Are you sure you're SPF 30? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Our other question had to do with juniors and seniors as well. It's how many junior developers should, and I think this might depend on the company, but how many junior developers should another more experienced developer mentor? So first, those who are the mentor, how many mentees should they or could they have?
It's hard to believe that I would have an opinion, but I always have an opinion. So I'll start. I think it depends on the level of mentorship, right? If you're bringing on a junior, you need a dedicated mentor for that person.
Yeah.
If you are going to hire a junior developer under your team and you don't have a senior developer who can commit 15 minutes twice a day to sit down and talk with that person, and hopefully more than that, at least a 1 hour long pairing session during the week where they're able to really support and grow and help that person develop, then it's kind of cruelty, actually. Like it's pretty toxic behavior of the tech industry to hire someone into a junior position and then leave them in a corner and watch them fail. You may be pushing someone out of tech forever with that kind of behavior, and it makes me pretty upset when I see it happen. Make sure that you have a plan. It's not that hard. That's the whole thing, right? People come to me and ask like, well, how should I design my mentorship program? Talk to them 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at the end of the day, explain the goals of those, tell me about what you're doing today. It's basically an extended personalized stand-up, and then talk to me in the evening about anything I can help you prepare for your work on the next day, what sorts of research you can do. And it'll make a world of difference for people. That being said, I hope that I act as a mentor to many different people by small degrees, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm giving 20 minutes a week to someone of my time to chat about something or other with their career. That's fine. If you're not in that structured mentor, like directly responsible for onboarding some junior in your company, then as much time as you have to give the world, make sure you make time for yourself. But
yeah, for sure. And like for us, like we've been the way we work is we're pretty much asynchronous all the way. We do have meetings, and like we will pair or like meet up with folks if need be. So like we don't do like the model that you're explaining, like the 15-minute check-in and like and so on. But the way we do it is it'll typically come through Slack, and just say like, hey, can I book you for like 30 minutes or an hour? I just want to go through this whole thing. And then, and typically it's not a big deal because we all work in different time zones, and, so it's usually not an issue. I mean, maybe there's sometimes if it's like I'm in Canada and somebody's in like Thailand, there's a huge difference there. But, those are like outliers where you can adjust for that anyways. But we definitely always make time if folks need the the help there. It's just for us, it's because we don't really have that many meetings. It's more just like, hey, if you need some help, let us know. And the way we're organized, it's never it's very safe in the sense like, hey, I need a hand with this, I'm really stuck on this, or I'm not sure how to approach this. So that's how we've typically worked. I'm not saying it's perfect, but seems to be
Yeah,
doing
none of it is perfect, and it doesn't have to be. The point is just to try, right? Mia made a really good point in the chat that they saw some people on Twitter talking about, I am taking on mentors for the next quarter, and I will take on 2 people. If there's another failure mode here, whereas an individual, if you are committing to be someone's mentor, I try not to actually say those words out loud. People are like, will
Yeah,
you
yeah.
be my mentor?
Yeah.
I don't really know if I've
Yeah.
got time for that, because I
Yeah.
consider that a pretty big commitment. But people who are very organized about it and take this seriously often present opportunities like that. You should absolutely jump at them. Someone else made a point that, let's see, who was it who said the thing about junior developers, that, it was also Mia, that it's valuable to have multiple mentors as a junior.
Yeah.
But if you're the mentor, you should make sure you have time for those people. And I think that the different perspectives are super important, actually. As we talked about with learning content, every new perspective is added value for you when you're trying to learn so quickly and level up in this industry. I'm going to explain something much differently than Nick would, right? It's important to have your structured mentor in the workplace and as many friends as you can get on board to answer your DMs out there in the world.
I think that's something I've been already trying to be more intentional about, is like, I know that my senior developers' time is like the most expensive time for company dollar. And like, while I absolutely need their input and their knowledge to learn best, I also like want to lean into the more like mid-level software developers, or even like the other junior developer that's just been there for a while. Because those people also have lots of great knowledge and, often have more flexibility in their schedules too. So, it's a lot easier sometimes, or faster, to get responses, and, just be more mindful of how much time I'm taking from senior devs, especially if they're like trying to, hit a deadline or anything like that.
Carmen,
Just
how
ask
has it,
Twitter at large.
Yeah,
that's
no, for
true.
sure. Yeah, just
Carmen,
kinda
how
what-
has it been for you at your job, like with like mentorships and stuff, since you went from like internship to junior dev? How have you felt like you've been able to kind of like reach out or talk to anyone? Has that been working out for you?
You're on mute, I think.
Yep.
Carmen, I'll speak for Carmen here. Feels like they don't have a voice in the workplace. Like no one's listening to them. It's hard to be heard. Yeah.
She's
We'll
not
give you a
muted.
moment.
We just can't hear her. You're not muted because I can see the little mute button went away. We just can't hear you.
Yeah, you went frozen cat for a second there too.
No.
But yeah, when her volume comes back, we'll let her chime in. But what Jonan was saying about like, don't necessarily say I'm going to be your mentors, like I'm going to be a mentor. It is a lot of commitment. And the other thing too is like several people have said this, and like, and Jonan just said it a second ago too, just putting stuff out on Twitter like, hey, I'm working on this thing, tried this or whatever, and lazy Twitter, and then all of a sudden, you get responses like I've mentioned this on other streams before, but like we work with Preact, which is like a lighter version of React at Forum, and I was running into a problem. I had a GitHub issue opened. I had written a bunch of stuff there, and I didn't explicitly tweeted out to the creator of the project, but he must, you know, he tagged, he finds tweets that have Preact in it, and he like responded to me, gave me a, you know, big explanation, suggestions on like the problem I had, you know, and that to me is kind of like implicit mentorship help, because it's like I didn't literally go to him and say like, hey, how do I fix this? Because like, one, you need to be mindful of people's time. He works at Google. He maintains a ton of open source projects. I'm not gonna, you know, slide into his DMs and just, you know, say, hey, help me fix this, you know. So it just, this implicit help can come from lots of places. Twitter, like communities. Like I've been in this community called Virtual Coffee for like over a year now, and it's like,
She's in here.
you just gotta finding your community too, like wherever that is. Like dev is big for me. Virtual Coffee, you know, if you're newer in your career, Code Newbie, other stuff. There's Discords, there's all kinds of things, you know. There's so many people out there with knowledge just waiting to help you, and all you got to say is, hey, I'm stuck on this, or I tried this. And honestly, most of the time folks will chime in with like some help. Most of the people I've met, I know there's assholes out there, but most of the people I've met, they typically want to help you. So, did you get your voice back in the workplace, Carmen?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Yeah, I agree. I've only met great people wanting to help, and I want to help people too. Back to your question, the biggest thing I appreciate about my senior developer is that I will throw crazy ideas out there and they'll be like, why not? Let's try it. Like, we'll be working on something I've never worked with, like connecting Azure to something, and it's not working. And I am helping debug, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm just like, that just looks weird. Can you explain what this is doing? And like, they'll explain it a couple times, they'll be like, but the path looks weird. Can we just, why not? Like, let's just try this. Just, you know, and then it works. Like, it was one of the moments where like I put that in my like notebook. I was like, yes. But just having a senior developer being open to your ideas, you know, I think that, you know, that like means something.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do want to touch real quick, just kind of back on what we were talking about as far as mentorship. A couple of people here have mentioned that, you know, you can find mentors, like select mentors and be a mentee. I think it's really important for people now, like with all the resources we have online, to also think of people's time and be aware that a lot of people are putting out content there so that they can reach a lot of people. Like I personally, when I get a question from someone, a lot of times in my DMs, I'll say, you know, I have this blog post on this, and I give them that, and then they can talk to me more if they want to after they've gone through that. Or I will create, when I had students, I worked at Lambda School for a while. When I had students, they asked me questions, I usually just created a blog post and shared it with everyone, because you can reach more people that way, and you're just a single person. So also just keep in mind of like people's time. It really is hard to take on the role of a mentor and be like, and have someone like really rely on you. So if you can have lots of mentors, like people have mentioned, that's great. I think Mia was the one that mentioned that, having several mentors, or just also knowing that people put stuff out there for you. And a lot of the times we're putting those things out there for free, and it can really be helpful. So definitely check stuff out that way as well.
Yeah, I dropped a tweet from Swick's Sean Wang. He says like, scale yourself, blog about everything you learn. and I think Scott Hanselman has a blog post about it too, like about saving his keystrokes. And it's kind of along the same lines, you know, like he kind of went into more detail about like how much time you're at a computer over the course of your life, but like the time is astronomical. So like, you know, instead of always going to help someone, just say, hey, check out my blog post, and then, you know,
create repeatable formats, like share the content with everyone. I invited Carmen to create Code School Q&A with me so I could answer the questions on video, and we would have a shared experience with all those questions. Also, Scott Hanselman has a blog post about most everything, I think. So
exactly. He's already scaled.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's like already a practice that I'm trying to pick up, is like I put out a blog about like a Code School survival tract to help. I mean, especially because I went through Epicodus Code School, to help those Code School students, but assuming that other code school students will have some kind of similar format, like those tips and pointers might also be helpful for them as well. And, keeping your sanity and, like how do human in code school, and then also like some of the technical stuff. So instead of like, doing a 30-minute talk anytime I wanted to talk to somebody about like, I've got thoughts and feelings about how you can do better, or like how you can make life easier for yourself while you're going through this really intensive period. And I already have several other thoughts planned for other blog posts about like my experiences as a junior developer and how like my impact can be broadened by like doing exactly that, putting my thoughts into words on the internet that live forever and ever.
Yeah, no, for sure. I had a really good thought and my brain sizzled, so I'm gonna have to regroup my neurons. Give me a couple minutes there.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking of a question too. Is there a question in the chat too?
I thought I saw one,
Maybe.
but go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah. So in true Code School Q&A style, I have lots of questions too. And this is something that I have been thinking about this week, where like I'm really excited to learn some of the new programming languages and other technologies that I haven't worked with yet that like are now in this like tech stack that is directly applicable to what I need to be doing every day. And like as senior developers, what do you recommend juniors do to balance like having some work-life balance, being cautious of how much time you're doing work outside of work, to improve your ability to do your job, and making sure that you can still, eat and sleep and exercise or do any of the other human things that you need to do. But also like recognizing that coding is really fun and digging into those learning materials are really fun. So it's not always a, energy suck to be working outside of work. So I'm curious, like, what you three senior developers have to say about that.
I'll go first, I guess, and then we'll
Yeah.
let others go. For me, I had a really hard time when I was first coming into tech balancing that, because I came into tech community taught, self-taught, community taught from the community. I didn't like go to a code school. I didn't go to official like school. And so I constantly felt like I needed to be learning something to keep up. At some point I realized if I really focused in on something in particular, I did a lot better of like learning, and I could build on to that. So learning little things each day. For me, I spent an hour a day just trying to learn something new and really focusing and creating like a project with it, not just like trying to take in information, but create a project. And I found that for me that worked really well, and I learned a lot. I could look back and see that I had learned a lot in a smaller amount of time if I did it that way, versus like seeing a bunch of things and be like, to learn all these things, which I did at the beginning. But also, if it is fun for you, think of it as like outside of work, we have hobbies, right? So if you can find something that can be fun and maybe you can use for something that's not necessarily work, but that you actually enjoy doing, then I think it's fine to code, after work. If that's something you like. Like I really loved animation. I wasn't doing that for work. And so I learned and I did that stuff on my own time because I really enjoyed it. And then it became something I did for work at a different point. So those are just kind of some of the things I did.
Yeah, similar to what Christina's saying. And like also I did this horribly when I was younger. I was just always in front of the screen, but like like nowadays it's like I work out in the morning. I get up at like 5:50 a.m., have a coffee, train at 7 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I need to sleep. So like, sometimes if I wake up early, I'll just maybe work on a bit of stuff before I work out. I do work on stuff in the evening because like people go, like my family's in bed, and then like I'm able to focus, and that's good time for me sometimes. So I'll typically do that on like the days where I'm not working out the next morning too. It's all like time management, like you could definitely burn the midnight oil, but then you're never going to work out. You're going to feel like a sloth in the morning. So and I'm definitely not saying I'm perfect at this, because I'm not, but it's really just, I think time boxing can help with that, or like, because we just say like, I'm just gonna go work on Ruby, or I'm gonna work on Rails, like, but what are you working on? Maybe I'm horrible at creating projects. Like everybody's like, I'm making a to-do app, or I have this cool app idea. I'm the person that's always like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. So typically what I do is, I want to learn something, I go look on GitHub, I find a project with the tech that I'm interested in, and I start contributing to it. That's what I do. But yeah, it's time management at the end of the day, I think.
I think it is in part, and I think so. It's important to focus, but I also think it's important to be genuinely interested in the things you're learning. Right? If I
Yeah.
hand you a book about some technical topic and demand that you read it
Yeah.
and learn it, you're going to be much less effective in learning
Yep.
that thing, and it creates this sense of like guilt for you as an individual, which is a very common experience early on. You feel like you're probably suffering from imposter syndrome to some degree. That doesn't necessarily go away, but it does lessen over time. You look around the industry and you see other people whose careers are advancing more quickly than yours. You've got to understand every day that the race is long and it is only with yourself. You are not competing
Yeah.
against your peers. You're watching a stream like this and hearing us talk about our stuff. I get up and I meditate in the morning, and I make sure that I take breaks throughout my day to spend time with my kids. And I still feel all the time like I'm not managing all of my responsibilities as well as I could. But my days are full, and I'm going in a lot of directions, and I'm learning a lot of different things. I read a book recently, or I'm in progress on a book that I wanted to recommend to people on this subject. That is Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World, and it's about that thing, that it's not necessarily the best strategy to focus so intently on a particular technology, or or specialize like that deeply. That it's fine if you have many and varied interests. Pursue the ones that you're most excited about today, and
Mhm.
until that candle flickers, and then move on to another one, and have a nice collection of things that you're interested in, and
Yeah.
your career will thrive as long as you're focused on bringing people along with you. Like we said, create the content as you go. You're going to be a more effective learner, and cut yourself some slack. It's real easy to look around at everyone else and the strategies that they've used and decide that you are failing at life because you are not employing the same strategies.
Yeah.
You do you. You're the only one with the map, and you're drawing it as you go, and no one else can tell you how you should live or succeed.
Yep.
Yeah. And I can definitely tell you one mistake I did when I was literally just starting off in tech was, I was the master of hello world in every programming language that I thought it, and then I'd be like, yeah, I can apply to that. I did a printf in Java. I did a console log in that, and it took me a while to realize that, because I had this FOMO slash, I mean, it's not even imposter syndrome, because at that point it's like I don't even have all this knowledge. It's really just like I felt this pressure that I had to learn all these languages or I wouldn't go anywhere. And it sounds silly to me now, but at the time it really bothered me, and it didn't work, because like I would, do something trivial in several languages, and then I never at the beginning didn't grasp any of those. It was only until I just said like, okay, well, I'm working in this language now, and I just kind of just went deep in that, because regardless of the language or syntax, over the years, it's the programming concepts, the patterns, those are the things that stick with you. So like, if somebody's telling you to use like Svelte over React or Vue, pick what works best for whatever you're working on. But like, a lot of the concepts are going to translate to all these frameworks, it's just I would dig deep into like one language, and typically that's like, if it's your first job, you probably dig into whatever language you're working at work. But
All
but
of the
again, like,
concepts will
yeah,
transfer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
I think it's
Christina. You look like you had something.
I think it's also important to realize some of the other things you can bring into the job. I think we get really focused in tech on like just the coding, and like you said, like I can code all these, hello world and all these languages, and we forget that there's other skills that you have that you can bring into tech that are valuable, like being able to write, being able to teach, being able to share, like those things you can work on too if you don't want to have to just work on the coding all the time. Like I knew for me that I liked coding, and coding was a way to make money. I have 4 kids, need to make money. It's a way that I could live where I wanted to live in Costa Rica, but it wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to work with people more. I wanted to, so I brought those other skills that I had, and I created that path for me so that I could have that kind of role that I wanted, realizing that I didn't have to just be code. So I think that's important too, to realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've already totally volunteered myself to take on like some documentation projects at work because I really love writing documentation, and I think that I'm pretty thorough about it, and like we'll do several iterations of like, first draft, second draft, and then like go through all of the steps that I've just outlined in actual like practice to make sure that I'm not missing anything or like leaving out anything that I think is implicit in the moment but should be explicit on paper, virtual paper anyways. But yeah,
I'm
and that
glad
also
there are
like
people in the
helps
world like
me.
you.
I
Yeah,
do the documentation too. I like it
Yeah.
too.
yeah.
We did get
But
a
then it's also a great
question.
learning experience too.
Yeah.
So
We
you're gonna
did
say,
get a
Christina?
question from Andrew, and I just reiterated so I knew. So what progression would you expect a dev to take? Most progression I'm offered would mean less coding time, and that's not really something I'm interested in. I asked if they meant kind of like, the managerial path or individual contributor, and they said, I guess, professional progression through a company. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
So
I mean,
is the question like stay on the IC track, individual contributor track versus managerial?
That's what I was wondering.
I think it's how to
Andrew's-
navigate the path on either of those, right? There's
Okay.
a fork here, right? You will eventually reach a point in your career where someone says to you, "I think you'd be a great manager," and the answer you give to that question is going to determine which of these roads you take.
Yeah.
If that sounds fun to you, you should see a therapist and talk through why it sounds fun to you. But if you would like to proceed down the manager path, and that you can derive a sense of purpose from helping others succeed, and not doing the work yourself, and you're willing to give up your technical ability and that bleeding edge, and no matter what you tell yourself, you will lose some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be okay with you. Then you can follow a manager path. It's difficult sometimes to find yourself in a position because manager positions open up more rarely. If you are in a company with a strong mentorship and a good team, make it clear to your manager that that's what you want to achieve, right? You should be having conversations with your manager regularly about what you would like to achieve in your career and how they can help you get from here to there. It's my role as a manager to help people achieve their goals, whether they're here or in the future. I want to set them up for success for their next job by giving them the responsibilities they want now. So you may start out as a project lead on something, given some small task and a team of people. Can you take the reins and help the work get done? Now, if you want to pursue the other path, the technical strength path, then you need to, as much as possible, make sure that you are the go-to person for the sphere of knowledge that you're expected to have within the company. You're going to end up being promoted by creating opportunities for your team to get more value throughout the rest of the organization. This mostly works in large organizations, but if you're the person who others come to because you know the most about whatever technology it is, or simply because you built the relationship, you don't have to be the biggest Ruby expert at the company. You have to be the friendliest, most communicative Ruby expert at the company. And that
That's a great
will
point.
help you make a case to your manager that you are ready to be promoted. And you should have an outline already. You should have a growth plan with your manager. Sit down and say, what are the expectations of the next role? How do I get from here to there? Do you feel like this project that I recently completed demonstrated this competency of a more senior role? Those kinds of conversations should be regularly happening during your weekly one-on-one.
Agreed.
The other thing I'd say too is there's nothing wrong with taking either path, like there's plenty of people who are like where I used to work, there's people in their 60s and they're still individual contributors, you know, that's what they enjoy doing. And that's, I mean, they're more senior, so like maybe they're not always coding, they're doing like what Jonan was saying, you know, help facilitate things, or like, you know, do more architectural things potentially. But you know, it's just choose what you want to do. Don't feel forced that like, oh, I'm becoming older, I'm moving on in my career, I guess that means I need to move in a managerial role. It does, you know, that I feel like that's the old school like mentality, you know, but like, I mean, just do whatever, you know, you want to do. Don't just say, I guess I should do this because for whatever reason, you know, because if you're not happy, like,
It's effectively ageism, and it's a very serious
Yeah.
problem in tech, that like people feel as though someone who is 60 years old and still writing code all day every day has somehow like failed to ascend into management. First of all, like you've got the pyramid upside down. Managers exist to serve. If you are a manager, you're there to support your team and their growth. You are not higher up on any kind of pyramid except the one you make up in your head. What happens though is there is sometimes an expectation that someone who's 50 years old, which I'll be in 30 years, is supposed to be in management or supposed to be a principal or staff level engineer. In the right kind of company, none of those things apply. If you're experiencing that with your career, reach out. Let me know which company it was and who treated you that way. I'd just like to know. I keep a list privately.
I'm going to interject just 1 second. I have kids like that won't stop banging on my door, so I'll be right back so I can tell them to stop, but you all continue on. I'll be right back.
This always cracks me up because we use Crisp AI for like blocking out background noise, so it's like I never hear any of the noise, but like her kids are like literally like ready to kick down the door, and it cracks me up because she's just like all cool and calm, and it's just like yeah. But that's why I also like streaming, because you know, like, expect the unexpected. Maybe we'll have another sloth sighting today as well.
If she brings the sloth onto the stream, I'm going to be so excited.
Oh yeah. If she can pick up a sloth, I'd be impressed. That'd be.
I mean, they're easy to catch, right? They're sloths.
Yeah, exactly. Wait. I know. I think I feel like most of you have probably seen Zootopia, the DMV scene.
I love it.
I died even when I saw like just the preview. I'm like, whoever made this film is genius. Like I was dying.
Brilliant. It's really well done. I've seen it several times. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I love those kinds of films that are entertaining for both children and adults. Pixar is really good at this as well, like weaving a double narrative into the show that people will find interesting across generations.
Yeah, Becca's saying the same thing. She was fighting off some kids, and one of them is very strong.
Yeah, hilarious. Yes.
That's awesome.
I think we did have a question in chat too.
Yes, we did.
Jen was asking, how does career progression advice differ if you're a dev working in a startup versus a medium-sized company versus a large corporate org?
Ooh, good question. Do we have answers?
I'm always the person to go first. Is that okay?
I'm probably not the person to answer. So
I mean, I can say a little bit of what I think, but Jonan, you probably have a better.
Why don't you go ahead?
I mean, I've been in, smaller and some bigger companies, so I guess I have a little bit of perspective on this, but I think either way, a company, just like Jonan was saying before, like you should be talking to your manager about these things. You should have an idea of whether it's like levels that a company has. Like sometimes they'll have like specific levels they'll write out for you, which we do at Dev. I just got into a new role as a developer advocate, and the first thing my manager did was like, I'm going to create levels so that we know how you can progress, and that's super helpful for me. I know where I can go, and we're a smaller like startup, but the same thing has been at like other companies. It may be harder for you to get into a role that's like the next level up, depending on the size, and also what a company can afford, depending on those levels. But each company you're working at should give you some kind of idea of how you can progress to the next thing. And if they're not, you should talk to your manager about it, because that's something I've had to bring up before at companies. Like, I don't actually know where I can go from here. Can I go
Yeah,
anywhere?
yeah.
Like, you know, you need to have those conversations. A lot of times you have to advocate for yourself, whether that's hard
Yeah.
or not. It is hard, but it's something you might have to do. But yeah, Jordan, you
Yeah.
can add,
As
or
with all
Nick.
things in this industry, you have to own the conversation, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that you understand the path to success there. I will say, in a startup, to an extent that I cannot properly explain until you have experienced it, you will be wearing a lot of hats, as they
Yep.
say,
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
you will be tasked with, on very short notice, an arbitrary range of tasks that may or may not be related to your set of skills. And what that will do is very rapidly level you up, right? If you are the right kind of person who can embrace that life on shifting sand, right?
Yeah.
If I were to come to you today and be like, in an hour and a half, we're flying to Costa Rica to visit my friend, right? And
Yeah.
that would maybe make you start sobbing. You're probably not the right personality type for a stand-up or for a startup. Now, the alternative in a larger company, I would classify large as like, I don't know, somewhere between 200 and thousands, right? I think it's hard to say. I don't know. Many people call startups for a long time. I feel like the place where structure starts to come around for a company is like 200 to 300 range, when you can actually have a pretty solid planning process and you can expect the work ahead of time, and where we don't
Yeah.
take any on any new tasks we haven't planned for 60 days at a minimum kind of company. That's going to be your experience in a larger company, and you can also grow quickly there, but you're going to be growing using a different strategy. That strategy of communication and collaboration is going to create much more success for you in your career. Whereas in a startup, even if you are not a lone wolf personality, which I really hope you're not, teamwork makes the dream work. You're
Yeah.
going to often be expected to accomplish tasks on your own. And you may not always have an understanding of how to get those things done, because no one does. No one at the company knows how to do the thing, but it falls on you to figure out a marketing strategy. If that sounds exciting to you, then a startup might be a way to go. But there are ways to level up in both scenarios equally fast. It's just important for you to own the conversation and talk to your manager about how you're going to achieve that.
Yeah, and I'll touch on this too, because I worked in a very small startup like the size of Dev. I've worked in a medium-sized company and a large company, like 40,000, and it is completely different. Like Jonan was saying, like when I was at the small startup, I was hired as a front-end dev. There was no career path really. It was just like, it's a startup. You're the front end. You're one of the front ends. Here's some options. But because it's a startup and super small, it's scrappy, and like, even though I was doing front end, I was doing Kubernetes deployments because we needed help to do it, and I wasn't hired for that, but it's kind of like when you're at a small startup like that, it's like you do whatever you can to help the team. I mean, if that's what, like Jonan said, that might not be how you operate. If that's the case, then a startup is definitely not for you. But the interesting thing about working at a smaller startup, even if it's scrappy, is, like, maybe you're like, hey, I want to learn DevOps, like, you're not going to get hired as a DevOps right now because you got hired as a front end here, but hey, I'm helping out with the CI/CD pipeline, and then you can literally go to another job and say, like, or, when you're interviewing, I have experience, I'm helping manage the CI/CD pipeline, so you can actually, it's, I don't want to say it's like a candy store, but like, you could be like, hey, you're working on this, can I pair with you? I want to learn about this, and because it's such a small company, and there's no like red tape really, it's, you can kind of mold it how you want it to be in some instances. And I think that's a great place to be if you don't really know what you want to do yet. So you potentially trying out things. And then like when you get to like other size companies, like when I was at a more medium sized company, there was levels, but it was more like junior, intermediate, senior dev. Like that's what it was. But then when I worked at Autodesk, which is like 40,000 employees worldwide, it's like they're like, okay, we're hiring you as an S12, and like there was like all these levels, and then it's like, if you want to be a staff engineer, that's going to take 3 years. You need to do this, 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 this. It's very structured, so it's like, it really varies depending on the company size and like the organizational structure. So it's kind of like a, take your pick, I guess, kind of, and there's good
Yeah.
and bad things about all these things. Like I loved working in a small startup because like I could just look at my coworker and say like, you want to deploy now? Yeah, okay, let's do it. Whereas Autodesk, and I'm not throwing shade on it, it's just like I finished a feature, 3 months later I see my feature in production, because it's gone through this whole pipeline and regression testing, and like it's just a longer process, and there's just more red tape. So
And I also
those are
imagine
my knowledge nuggets.
I
Go ahead,
imagine that in a startup that you would potentially at least have some input in the direction of the company and its culture and stuff going forward. Where if you were at a monolithic company, that you're more likely to just be that cog in the machine. Where if you want to make a change or make a difference or make a suggestion, you've got about 50 superior officers to go through and about 10 committees before anything is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think this ties into what Jonan was saying, though. You control your destiny. You got to speak up and stuff. And I'm not saying that if you, where you've got, like the onion organizational structure of like manager, that what you're going to propose is going to get done. But if there's one thing I've learned over time is just ask, speak, like that's, if you don't say anything, nothing happens. Definitely in a smaller place though, it's like you're probably literally beside the CEO at the startup. If the pre-pandemic, like you're in the same office area, it's a small open space, you can literally talk to the CEO. Hey, I don't like this, or why don't we try this? Not saying every place is like that, but
That's kind of
I'll
where
throw.
I'm at. Like, I'll have a one-on-one scheduled with the CEO at the end of like my 30 days,
Okay.
because it's a small enough company. And like when I was interviewing, the main HR contact that I had is a C-level person too. So, yeah, it's very much like I can talk to anybody at any level of the company, and like I think I set up a one-on-one already with like one of the regional managers in a totally different department, just because I can and I want to get to know other people and what's important to them,
Yeah.
outside of my department too.
But again, you went out of your way to do that, and this ties into like speak
Yeah.
up, ask, because you could have just not done anything and stay in your department, and so it's speak up, folks.
That's not my style.
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 more questions here. So we have a
Okay.
follow-up to the one we just answered. The follow-up question is, for those who wear a lot of hats at a startup or startup-like environment and level up quickly, how do you convey this rapid level up to other companies where certain levels have like a year requirement? So say you said like you were doing documentation or something, and then you wanted to go somewhere and they have at least a year experience for documentation. I'm guessing that's what Jen's saying. I can speak to this a little, but if anyone wants to go first, go ahead.
You go ahead, Christina, and then we can chime in.
Yeah. So my role at Dev, I kind of been the one that's been defining my role and I just talked to our CEO about this yesterday. And it's been a good thing for me. I like it. I get to kind of choose what I do, and I do kind of touch on a lot of different areas of the company. And I've done this at other places too. So the way I've been able to let other companies know when I've interviewed at other places has been that I keep track. I have a doc where I keep track of wins, whether they're small or big, like the things that I have done, the areas that I have touched on in a company, and what that has done for the company. So I try to have data of like, I created this bug smash event and it reached this many people. And, I keep track of those things. So it's very easy for me to talk to other people about those stuff. So even if I don't have like a year of that, they know that I can do those things. And I even at most companies I've interviewed at, when they've been like, you need 2 years, you need 5 years. If I've been able to prove that I can do these things or that I'm willing to do those things, it hasn't been as big of an issue. Not every company. Some companies are like, no, it's like a hard line. You need this. You need at least this much.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies, if you can prove and you can prove it with data to back it up, then it's a lot easier for you to communicate that with them.
Maybe
Yeah,
a
for sure.
sidebar
And-
from the sidebar. This is something I was actually like, because this is my very first salaried position. And so like the whole, like, I don't have to clock in and clock out and like I can determine my own hours. And like a lot of this is very foreign to me as somebody that works in hospitality for a long time. And so like that was a question that I had right off the bat for one of my senior developers was like, especially because I am remote, should I still be keeping track of my hours and like the tasks that I'm doing during those hours? But then like, you know, the answer to that was, if it's helpful for you to do that, sure. If that like, you know, provides you benefit. And I think that at least for the sake of like seeing the progression that I'm able to take of how long it takes me to complete a task on my first month, but then I can complete the same task on my second month in half the time. You know, having those markers and that data, I think would be really helpful over the course of my career. I'm curious if you like what kind of format you put that in. Do you do like an Excel sheet or some other like, you know, wins, long running wins document?
So I do a couple of things. I have I tend to use Notion for a lot of stuff that I do. When I have wins, I don't only just do like my own wins. When I've had a review or I've had like someone, like we have a kudos channel that we give each other kudos, or after our like review or quarterly reviews and stuff, if someone's given me good feedback, I drop that in as information too. Like all these things are helpful to be able to quickly tell someone what you've done and to look back on yourself like, okay, I have done all of these things in this amount of time. Because a lot of times I'll be working throughout the week or the month and I'll be like, oh, did I get anything done? And then I can look back at that and be like, yes, I did. Look at all these things that I have finished. It may not be like me working every second of every day, but look at the stuff I was able to accomplish. And I think as when you're a junior, a lot of times you do think that you have to like be working every second. But as you start becoming a little more, used to the job and what you're doing, you realize a lot of times, especially as a developer, is that you do have to take time to think things through. You have to, think of larger picture stuff as well. And sometimes it can be hard to feel like you've accomplished something in the day when you're doing that kind of stuff and you're not like at the keyboard doing your code and putting out code and PRs. But it actually is really, really important. And a lot of the times differentiates someone who's more senior versus someone who's more junior.
Yeah, and to touch on what you were saying about you have that journal, this is also important for like anybody in their career because companies might have different names for this, but like a 360 review or like whenever you have your evaluation, like how am I doing? If you have all these notes about like all the things you did that year, like when it comes to time to say like, well, we need to assess you now, you can be like, okay, well, I did this, I mean, as opposed to, because I've seen a lot of people do this where they're scrambling when it comes time to do it, that they're trying to remember all the stuff they did. So it can be helpful for like that. The other thing, which is not directly related to this, but is like a gratitude journal, like, whenever you're feeling down, you're like, oh man, imposter syndrome, or you just feel crappy today, or I'm no good. Like, just keep tabs on a bunch of things where people said nice things about you. Like, when I left my last job, I got a ton of amazing emails from my coworkers, like, oh my God, gonna miss you. It was great working with you. And I literally kept all those because like, sometimes if I'm feeling crappy, I can go look at those or like folks, if they said something nice about me on Twitter, I'll keep those. I don't keep everything because like I'm not the best note taker, but it's just kind of like a rainy day, like give you a little confidence boost. So there's that as well. But I think you were about to say something before there, Jonan, so I'll let you go.
I'm always about to say something. To be fair, so I have thoughts here. The Notion doc, use Obsidian, whatever you use to keep notes throughout your day and write down tasks. I mean, you should be writing things down when someone asks you to do something so that you drop fewer balls on the floor. You're going to be juggling so many things in this industry that
Yeah.
some will inevitably fall by the wayside, but do your best. And then what I will try and do, and I, with varying degrees of success, is to create roll-ups of my weeks. Sit down at the end of my week and kind of perform a self-retrospective on what I was able to accomplish and what pieces I wasn't. At the beginning of the week, the first hour of every Monday is dedicated to me sitting down and planning out my week and doing strategy work, which is often just me sitting there thinking with my notebook and writing things down. And then, continue to create those roll-ups at a higher level at a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And then, especially at the end of the year, sit down and take stock of the things you've actually accomplished. It's very easy to forget things. This is a habit I wish I'd picked up much earlier in my career, realizing that I need to keep careful notes of the things that I've done, because it's so easy to leave a job after 2 years and feel like I don't know what I did there. I feel like I did stuff for sure. I definitely did things. But whatever I did this last quarter, I will then describe as like the entirety of my experience there, when in reality there are many, many things on that list. And in answer to Jen's question specifically, on a resume, it's very important to have the bullets under the tasks. Someone asked me recently what is going to make a resume stick out to me when I'm just like going through the pile. One is that they've done the research on the job, and it's clear to me that they obviously want this position specifically at this company to do this work. And you could do that in an objective statement or with lots of ways, lots of different approaches. But then under each job, I want to see a bulleted list of the things you accomplished. Not too long. I don't have much time. Give me the high level overview. Put like your yearly roll up accomplishments. Just I organized 5 events and spoke to X number of developers. It's more of a DevRel focused bullet point, but I think you see the idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So I would like to actually swing back a little bit here on something Danielle mentioned. We're talking about actually clocking your hours when your salary. And while you don't like need to do that, generally speaking, I actually will advocate for doing it anyway for yourself. There's a couple reasons why. Some companies, especially startups, may not understand the law that well, and they could say that your salary exempt when you're not. So there's salary and salary exempt, whether you're exempt for overtime or not, and it depends on the state and where you're living and whatnot. So some positions to actually be exempt from receiving overtime, which is one reason a lot of companies will give you salary rights to more or less abuse you. You have to have a certain education qualification, and in this industry that may qualify depending on where you live, but as a general rule, that's something to be careful of, because that could end up getting you or the company in trouble if you're working overtime and they're not paying you overtime when legally they have to. So that's something just to keep in mind. The other thing is that if you aren't keeping regular hours, let's say you're working remote and they say, well, you can work any hours you want, just get the work done. Well, let's say you start off working at 40 hours a week, and then a few weeks in, you're working 42 hours a week, and then eventually you're working 50 or 60 hours a week, and you're getting all your work done. And you don't really recognize it because you've just been kind of creeping up on it like that. Well, at a certain point, that overtime is going to crush you. As it certainly would crush me when it gets too much. And this whole time, your seniors have thought you've been working 40 hours a week and getting your job done, when you could have been telling them, I've got too much work on my plate and I need some help. And at some point, you have now sort of dug your own grave, where like I'm drowning in work and I need help, and we could have sorted this out a long time ago. So if you track your hours, I think is a good way to help keep yourself in check that way.
It's a great point.
I wanted to throw in there too. Chad is talking about having a happy box. I call this a rainbow folder, where like I stole the name from Chloe Condon, but I had previously kept a folder on the advice of a friend of things where people reached out to me and said, hey, you did a really good job on this. I'm so happy to know you. It was really helpful when you did this thing. It comes up often that you'll meet someone later on in your career who says, one time we spoke at a conference for maybe only 5 minutes, and it really changed my perspective on this, or really helped me in my career this way. Save those messages for the rainy day when you're going to need them. That's your rainbow folder. Open up that
Mhm.
collection of screenshots of DMs you got on Twitter that remind you that the work you're doing is helping the world, and save them for the length of your career. You're going to need those someday.
For sure. And Chloe
Yeah.
Condon is a great follow. She's a super nice person. I've never met her in person yet, but
Yeah, definitely.
definitely
Twitter
Fantastic
person.
human.
in the community. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing to touch on what you were saying, Randall, about the hours. The only time I've had to actually log hours, one was like if you're working for clients, like I wasn't working on product, I was working on in service, so you have to give the hours because the client needs them. But the other time I did have to do it, I assume this exists in the States too, but in Canada, you get these government grants for startups and you have to log the hours so you can get these grants. So that's the only time I've seen it. But like every other job, it's like once you're salaried, they're not expecting you to put in a timesheet or anything. At least the other places
Yeah.
I've worked at.
Yeah,
But
But
I
it can
think
be
it was
helpful
I think
sometimes
it
to
was a
track.
good point. Yeah, keep track for yourself, just like Randall was saying, because
Yeah.
I have worked at one where I was technically contract, but I was working 40 hours a week, but then I wasn't. I was working like a lot and I wasn't getting paid overtime, and the same thing, you dig yourself into
Yeah.
your own grave if you're not like keeping track and then telling someone, hey, I need some help with this. Like my manager all the time, Molly, who Nick knows, she's always like, let me know at some point if what you're doing, because I do kind of do stuff all over the place is like too much, so we can either
Yeah.
bring someone else on or we can give it to someone else, or let's find ways so that you're not working over. And so if you have that, like a manager doing that proactively, that helps. But if you don't, just like Randall said, keeping track for yourself is super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're
I
going to
don't.
achieve work-life balance, you have to know. You need to know
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things.
Totally.
I don't know if I said it on this stream or if I was saying it yesterday somewhere else, but being able to say no is a superpower and it's not a negative thing. It's like I'll give you an example. Last year I was the only front end on at Forum, so like there's no way I could do everything. So like it hit a point like around Hacktoberfest where I just started telling folks, listen, this is as much as I can do. I will get to these things eventually, but I'm just letting you know I'm like there's too much for me to do right now, so I will do it when I get to it. And people were very understanding and supportive, because if I had said nothing, I would have been drowning, and then like I would have looked bad too, because like that's just not good because you're not finishing things or you're doing half things and stuff. So just being able to say no or to prioritize things, like if people say like they have these 3 things that are super high priority, if you ask them to pick 2 of them, they're going to prioritize them. They're going to say, well, really, these 2. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that too, Jonan, but
I absolutely do. I think like you've got to be the person who says no. If you are always saying yes to every task, you're going to be letting people down, and nobody else knows your workload. They don't understand the hours you're putting in. Look, like as much as I would like to pretend otherwise, tech is an industry where there will occasionally be long days. There will be
Mhm.
reasons
Yeah.
that you're going to have to work longer days. Now, I've always aimed for companies where I get to work remotely in hopefully a results oriented work environment where they don't really care when my butt is in the chair doing the work as long as
Yeah.
the work gets done. That means that I
Yeah.
can step away in the afternoon to take my daughter swimming if I want. I have more freedom with my time, but the trade-off there is that some days end up being 12+ hour days. Today is definitely going to be one of those days for me. That's just the
Yeah.
nature of the beast, right? And I have to be
Yeah.
okay with that and willing to commit that energy, but it also means I've got to own the tasks. When people are DMing me today saying, "Hey, can you pick this up this afternoon? Can you talk to this team about this thing?" I have to be willing to reply, "Hey, I'm away on a
Yeah.
team on-site today. I'm basically at full capacity right now with my tasks. I can drop some things. Here, you've
Yeah.
asked me to do this as well, and I was planning on doing that. I could put that aside for a week."
Yeah.
But you're passing the ball back. You're giving them the opportunity to decide which things really matter to
Yeah.
them, given that you as a human have very limited capacity.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna drop it here. We've got a ton of people on the stream still. It's 2:30. I don't have a hard stop. I know, Jonan, you're at an offsite. I don't know if you have a hard stop, but if folks want to keep talking for a while, we still can. Or if folks do have hard stops, we can call it here. I leave it to the floor to decide.
I do think we had one more question in the chat that I would be comfortable doing a round of answering for, but
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
past that, I probably should get back to my new job. Yay.
Okay. Yeah. No, for sure. Do you know what? I don't see the question. Do you know which one it was, Danielle?
Yeah. Creature Next was asking, how hard or easy is it to build connections with coworkers in a remote setting? And like, what kind of advice do we all have to share about setting those connections up?
Yeah.
I think we all have thoughts and things to say about this.
Carmen, you haven't talked in a while. Can I throw
Yeah.
you under the bus and make you talk?
Oh, Carmen.
Is this thing on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Best way to make connections, be yourself, send memes.
Memes are important.
Memes are good advice.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
GIF.
Thoughtful memes and GIFs. Like what I did with my job, I asked to meet with everyone in the IT department separately, just to get to know them, get to know what they do and how they contribute to the organization, and how we can help each other in certain ways. And that people appreciate that. People appreciate being seen and heard, and so take the time to get to know people if that's the culture there.
Yeah.
Or make it the culture.
Or make friends. Just be friends.
Yeah, and like if you were in a company that like, even if it was like, I mean, most companies are remote right now because of the pandemic. Still, I know some are going back, but like we're full remote. I was lucky enough to go to an offsite right before the pandemic hit with a bunch of my coworkers, and the offsites are super important because it's FaceTime that you can bond with your coworkers. And I personally felt like once obviously it's pandemic now, but just having that connection of hanging out for a week with a bunch of my coworkers, even though I see them on Zoom all the time, I definitely feel way more connected. And then, hopefully once things are done with the pandemic, we're definitely doing another offsite. That's typically what you do in a remote style company. How frequent that is, I think it varies between the companies, but the other thing we do, we play games online. There's like Jackbox. We do like Pictionary. Silly games, but they're fun, and it's just time that you're just hanging out, chilling with your coworkers. We do water coolers that we have. They're not mandatory. They're just optional. They fire up a Zoom in the Slack, and if people want to join, they can just go and talk. Or we have co-working rooms. We do. It's obviously never going to be the same thing as being side by side somebody all the time, but I don't think that's a terrible thing. I think that's a pretty good compromise with a mix of all those things.
I do want to say one thing to the offsite thing. Not at all against offsites. I do like them. I also think there is the need to remember that not everyone can go to like offsites. And I think you do have to find other ways to connect. Just like Nick was saying, the other things that you can do. An offsite, Andrew, is like when a remote team goes and they pick one place. So they say, okay, we're all going to go to some place in California, and they all get together and they spend some time together, sometimes working, co-working together, or sometimes just doing fun things. It really depends on the company. But for me, for a long time, I have 4 kids. Right now I'm in Costa Rica. It's a little bit harder for me to like go to these types of things depending on where they are. We also have coworkers kind of all over the globe, so it's kind of hard. But I think that's just one thing to remember too. It can be hard when you're looking at remote work. A lot of companies I turned down because they wanted to have like offsites like 4 times a year or different things like that. And I was just like, that's not something I can do. I would love to be able to be with you all. That's not going to happen. So just keep that in mind too when you're looking at remote jobs and the kind of the remote culture that job has.
I mean, to that point too, like offsites, I mean, a lot of a lot of the time, like I can imagine a manager might not always be thinking in terms of accessibility either, where like, is the location that we're going to actually going to be accessible to any people on my staff that have, you know, disabilities or anything like that? Like, is this place even a thing that like all of my staff can get to and be comfortable in and get around? So
Is there going to be drinking when people don't want to drink? Is there going to be like, you know, there's all kinds of things to think of.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think Creature Next was asking, like, how do you do it? And I think you're doing a great job right now. Creature Next is a regular on the Code School Q&A stream every week. I had never met Creature Next before, and now we're gonna be chatting after the stream this afternoon here. So you are doing it. We are proof of it right here. I met both Danielle and Carmen and Jonan through Code School. And here we are. Code School was months ago, and we're still hanging out. We have a Discord channel for our cohort, and a lot of us still communicate through that. There are meetups. Another shout out to Virtual Coffee. I started going to Virtual Coffee last week. It was great. I'm going to go again. What is it, tomorrow, I guess? And there's a members only one on, excellent, and there's a members only one on Friday. I just heard about streaming, so I'm gonna try to go to that one too. You can make it happen.
Shameless plug, but that's me doing that, brown bag.
There you go.
Yay.
All right. So sign up for Virtual Coffee. Come tomorrow and say hello to us, and then come to the brown bag when you're a member on Friday. It's a you can't lose situation there. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I talked about this earlier too, but like starting a new job specifically, and like I'm being very intentional about setting up one-on-ones with people beyond just like my direct managers. Like certainly my direct managers and people within my team are really important to set meetings up with, and I'm doing that, but like reach out to other people in the company too, and like get involved in some of the like personal Slack channels or whatever your work team uses. Like we have a Tuesday dad joke team apparently, or thread on Slack. And so like interacting with some of those to like get some of your personality out and interact with people as humans and not just about work stuff is super important.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm just going to throw it out again. I want to be mindful of your time, Danielle. I definitely want you to have a day 4 of your job. So
I already sent a Slack message off, so I'm all right.
Okay, cool.
I have a thought on this. Carmen, do you have anything to share?
Internet connection.
Yeah, Carmen.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Carmen, for your input. Carmen's thoughts are.
You not hear me?
There we go.
I can hear you, Carmen.
It was very insightful.
Tell us about remote work. What works, what doesn't.
Oh, what? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Is this going on? I don't know what's going on. My internet's fine. About remote work, I love remote work. I feel like I'm in my safe space and I can just be myself, and you have to be flexible and understanding. Don't expect someone to respond to you right away. They will, and if they don't, they're not your friend. But I just think being flexible and open-minded, just make friends.
So I have a lot of thoughts on how to make remote companies work. Christina wrecked a big part of my advice, which is quarterly on-sites, off-sites, whatever they end up being. It is important to make sure that those are opt-in, right? This is not a required thing. It's not mandatory for people to attend. There is still, unfortunately, no replacement for the human connection that comes from being in the same room with other humans. Psychological safety, team trust are vital elements to the success of a company. If you have managed to destroy the psychological safety on your team, it's going to take you a long time to rebuild that. And you, in the meantime, are going to be far less productive all the way across the board. People will be unlikely to share opinions. They won't feel safe speaking up when things are overburdening, right? Like there are so many things that can be solved very quickly by sitting down and hanging out. And those on-sites, I mean, there are very important like brain reasons for that connection. You produce oxytocin when in proximity to other human beings. You don't virtually. They have done the science. People far smarter than me. So if you are building a remote only company, or if you're working for a remote only company, make sure that you prioritize getting that in-person time however you can. When you're on those things, many companies stuff those full of meetings. Let's do all the planning, and we're going to sit down. This is a good opportunity to have 8 hours of meeting for 8 days. Like, wow, what are you doing? It is so the opposite of what that should be about. Like, yes, it is a good chance to get some planning done, some strategy work in person where everyone can collaborate real time, but the vast majority of that should just be social time to get to know your coworkers, to develop empathy for them as human beings. And that strategy carries to the virtual world, where when you first land at a company that is ideally all remote, I do not recommend under any circumstances being one of very few remote employees at an in-person company. You will be excluded.
Yeah,
The companies
I
are
had that.
not great at that. They're not great at that. And I wish that they were better. There are a lot of things you can employ to make that work, but that's a longer story. But when you are remote and a whole team of remote people, do the thing that other people have suggested here, which is set up meetings with other people. And your job during those meetings is to come away with something about that other person that makes them interesting to you, genuinely interesting. That you are there to get curious about them as a human being and develop empathy for them and understand their goals and what they're trying to achieve here at this company and why it matters to them, the work that they're doing. You're going to be a more empathetic coworker and more successful in your career. You're going to be able to collaborate more effectively when you build those strong relationships. But as much as possible, if you are running a remote company or have the opportunity to enforce those in-person gatherings, do as much as you can to make that happen, with all of the other caveats in mind, like addressing accessibility and remote locations like freaking Costa Rica, which I'm still jealous about.
Providing ways
it's a
to like
Have
have
an
hybrid
offsite
events.
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say
Yeah.
one more thing on it real quick, and not again, I'm not hating on offsites because I think they're super, super helpful, but I just want to put the perspective out there that I think a lot of times people don't think about. One that I think Danielle brought up, the accessibility, which is great. Gonna throw it out there. As a woman in tech, sometimes it's really uncomfortable to go to offsites depending on your team. So if you already don't feel like safe with a team, so you really have to have like that feeling safe there. I'm not going to call out the place I went to or the company with, but where it was very uncomfortable, and the types of, activities they had us do were like activities I didn't want to participate in or be a part of, that kind of were like afterwards I felt like I don't even want to work here anymore. Like it made it worse to work there versus like it being something that I really enjoyed and wanted to be a part of. So I think keeping those things in mind, people who are like, going to be putting these on and stuff have to really consider all of these types of things. I'm not a person of color in tech. Someone who's a person of color in tech may also feel not comfortable depending on how inclusive like your company is. There's just things like that you also have to kind of keep in mind and think of when doing these offsites.
And I think
Great
to extend
points.
that, like not just to women, but like to other marginalized genders, like non-binary folks or trans folks, and people that are out about that. Being like in safe work environments is really, really important. Yeah.
No, for sure. It's no. Thanks for bringing that up, Christina and
Yeah.
Danielle.
And I think this is a kind of like back to like a more technical point, like when you are in work mode with people, I find it to be really helpful to kind of have like a short list of like my go list of like, this is how I tend to work best, or this is how I learn. This is like preferred ways for communication for me, and like trying to be like upfront and communicative about the things that work well and don't work well. And then finding out those same things about the people that you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis, so that you can like work to meet somewhere in the middle and find ways to work with other people that is a positive experience for everybody, and hits on like lots of those different learning styles, or is just mindful of how people's brains work.
I heard of this Go list thing, and I thought it was like maybe a Go bag, like where you keep your fake passport and all of your cash. You should have one of those too, in case you need to bug out.
I gotta get out.
Yeah, I generally have that stuff on my person
Yeah, good call.
in my backpack at all
Yeah.
times because like in the before times I like was always on the move, so I just haven't like rearranged my bag to reflect anything but that. So I'm ready for post-pandemic times.
Yeah. My other passport says my name is Hans Gruber. Anyways, I digress. I'm laughing at myself because we've been streaming this whole time and I forgot to update the title on the header of the bottom of the stream, so I removed it. So we've been interviewing James Q Quick again today. So
Oh, I didn't even pay attention.
James Quick is
Awesome.
rad. Good human. You should go watch the VOD of that one.
yeah. Well, awesome. Like, I guess we're getting the time here. I'm still happy to keep talking, but like again, I'll just say I want to be mindful of people's time. I know Jonan has an offsite. He's got lots of stuff to do today too. Are you folks okay with calling it now, or do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay,
say
we'll
let's go
call
ahead
it.
and
I
I
think
think
so.
we'll wrap it up. Yeah, I think this is good.
Who are we raiding?
Cool,
Let's
cool.
raid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to learn how to raid, Nick.
Well, I know how to raid. I just don't have it set up on my
Okay.
on my whatchamacallit.
Oh,
On
okay.
my,
We don't have to raid, but it's fun
I'm
to
gonna.
raid.
It is.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Who's he's probably not online. Who's that one? The who's the guy you guys traded the other?
That nerd.
Yeah.
Oh, that
that
nerd.
I
think they
that nerd. They're
normally
not
stream
online.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Let's
take,
see who I know that's online. We'll
oh,
find someone.
try,
Recommendations,
try.
chat? What do you
Oh
got?
yeah, no. Let's go to Chael. Chael Codes is on.
There we go.
It's,
Yeah.
one of your.
Cool.
Oh,
one of your new
really?
relics.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Or Trost Codes. Yep,
Chael,
he's on
yeah.
too. Front end
Let's
horse.
do it. All right.
Woo.
We're gonna rate Chael Codes because we're on the new relic bandwagon right now. Just want
Let's
to say
do it.
thanks for everybody for coming on today. This was great conversations, and the chat's still going strong. We got a lot of people out here still. So, folks, hang tight. We're gonna go and raid Chael Codes. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks.